Hi, everyone. Yeah, this is my talk. Is virtual space dead? I'm here to provoke you today to ask questions about where virtual space has kind of come in the last 2 decades and where we're going via Counter-Strike. I know it's a little early in the morning, so hopefully this doesn't get too theory and too weird. But yeah, we're going to look at Counter-Strike and also just talk about virtual space in general and what's happened to it. So the essay that was written in 2013 by Guido Steyrl asked the question, is the internet dead? And there's kind of a lineage of questions like this. Is reality dead? Is the internet dead? Is virtual space dead? So I'm just one more person down the line. And her main concern was, when did the internet end as a possibility? When did it become awkward and developed, surveilled, exploited? In her words, when did it kind of fill up the sink and fall onto the floor? And so in virtual space, what are the moments that we've had in the last 2 decades? Most of them are uncomfortable, but what are the moments that this has kind of happened to us? And there's a few kind of cases that apply to games that she even brings up in her essay. Steyrl brings up gold mining in World of Warcraft and Bitcoin mining. And mining in general, when natural extraction, resource extraction became virtual, when our economies and digital processes became so lucrative that at one point Bitcoin was consuming 1% of the entire world's energy. So these are the moments that virtual space became very real. And take a game like Minecraft, where the entire premise of the game is that a player would want to accumulate resources over time. One of those is redstone, which is just like in real life, we have rare earth minerals that we use to build motherboards and computers. One in Minecraft can then mine redstone, which can then power simple circuits and even create computers inside computers. Turing-complete computers that we can run memory off of, complete logical processes. And these are the kind of layers and stacking that we've done in virtual space that have caused kind of some complexity where things have kind of come offline. So we can imagine computers inside computers and worlds within worlds. And that's kind of when we get images like this. This is an edited photo by Pele Cass. It's an ongoing series called Crowded Fields, in which he takes many photos of the same area and overlays them. So something like if you were to take all the servers of Counter-Strike playing the same map and superimpose them over each other, you get an image kind of like this. Or if you were to play a game like Celeste or Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, it might look something like that. So that's just kind of the temporal and spatial aspects of virtual space that we can imagine. All these overlapping worlds that kind of simultaneously exist inside our computers. This is where I take a detour for a second to talk about something that I've been working with for the last few years, which is VR and AR. And do I point the finger about the death of virtual space at them and why I don't really necessarily do it? But there has been some overlap in the ideas of stacking virtual space in the games I've made in virtual reality with the studio Tenderclaws. The first one in 2017 was Virtual Reality, which was a meta-narrative game about you're a gig economy worker in virtual reality for AI masters, and you use the virtual reality headsets as the kind of node or access points to different virtual worlds in the game. And then the next year we made Tendar, which was an augmented reality game in which you had a virtual Tamagotchi-like pet fish that you trained using object and emotional recognition technology that you could scan, and then you can see Guppy would text you things, like he'd ask you where you were, or what you were looking at, and if you scanned something, you could then put it in this virtual fish tank. If you have an AR Core phone, this is a free download, so go grab it if you're interested. But yeah, we have this layering and stacking, and virtual reality and augmented reality kind of pull in different ways. In the middle, you have, I guess, just screens, and then on the other side, you have virtual reality, which tries to put an opaque screen over your head and kind of force you into that world and keep you there. Whereas augmented reality wants to kind of coax virtual worlds off the screen and into your world using smartphone cameras to position and track them and place them on sidewalks, on desks, everywhere around you. So are they the horsemen of the apocalypse? Is virtual space, blah, blah, blah. Here's another fun philosopher. So this is the guy that theorized the death of the the real. In his book, The Perfect Crime, Jean Baudrillard basically tries to theorize, well, the perfect crime is the murder of reality and who killed it. And he kind of lands on television, the 24/7-hour news cycle, along with reality TV. Is virtual reality, augmented reality like this? No, I think like when you see an image like this, your anxieties are not about virtual reality. It's about Mark Zuckerberg picking your pocket while you're stuck in your virtual reality headset, really. It's more the anxieties we have over tech oligopolies than it is the technology itself, probably. So that's the detour I just wanted to take quickly. And now I can hopefully slow down a little. So now we can talk to our main question. And I want to try and be precise about what died. I don't want to just be meandering, and hopefully I can be fairly precise vis-a-vis Counter-Strike. But in 2001, the Game Studies Journal published its first peer-reviewed kind of journal about video games, and the editor had this to say in 2001. Espen Arseth wrote, "To some of us, computer games are already a phenomenon of greater cultural importance than movies or perhaps sports. Seen from 2001, the potential cultural roles of computer games in the future is practically unfathomable." So let's see what happened in those 20 years. 1 year before this was published, Counter-Strike was released. And actually 2 years, maybe. But Counter-Strike is the reason I want to look at Counter-Strike is because it has been around for 2 decades, and it has been, for better or worse, one of the most consistent virtual spaces that we've been able to track and look at. World of Warcraft would be another, but I have a personal kind of interest in first-person shooters, probably because of the ethical and moral implications of us, shooting each other at night and blowing each other's heads off in virtual space, and what that means for us that we do this on a daily basis and we find it interesting. So Counter-Strike, for those who don't know, I'm just going to assume that most of you know, is just a first-person shooter. It's a multiplayer game, very tactical. There's 2 sides, counter-terrorist. Counter-terrorist, you fight, the end. Or maybe not the end. And specifically, there's a map called Dust 2, which has kind of been the most popular and played map for 2 decades. For 2 decades, this has kind of captivated everyone's attention as the most fun map to play, you could say. So yeah, it's 20 years old, and this is what it looks like today. Because it's as virtual spaces age, they actually become higher definition. They actually kind of get dusted off. So Dave Johnston made the original in 2001, but in our current iteration that was released 2 years ago, worked on by a team of artists. This is kind of where we're at. So the original Dust, asked questions in 2001. We had the impending attacks of 9/11 and the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. And so a lot of the readings of virtual space, like Dust, were about the ethics of counterterrorism, terrorism, violence in games. Like this Gulf War relic that is Counter-Strike. And why do we play it? But I want to move past readings like that today, because I don't think that's where games academia went, but now we're past that. This is really how Counter-Strike functions today. It's not really about the conflict. I think it functions more like, and Frank Lance at the NYU Game Center talks a lot about this, as more like a pub or like a hangout spot, right? It's a very social experience. It's not about the violence that's inflicted. So you can still have an axe to grind, but really it's more like a modern cowboys and Indians, to use Frank Lance's term. It's just like counterterrorism. Terrorism is the paradigm of the modern day bad and good, in I guess, to oversimplify. So yeah, over the course of 20 years, you have like 6, 7 versions of this map that have been continually updated, and we keep playing. The pub gets a little louder, a little noisier, but this map stays for 20 years. And it's occupied by people playing it. And so I guess what's interesting is to look at the description that Valve uses when they market this game. In the original 2001, it might be a bit too small to read, but they say something along the lines of it's a realistic brand of terrorist warfare. And there's a lot of power fantasies over rescuing hostages and stuff like that. But in the newer version, they actually just say it's like a nice way to go back to DE Dust 2. They even print out DE Dust 2 on the description of the store page, which is funny because it's the file name. It's not even like the official title of the map. DE stands for demolition, which is just like the bomb defusal game mode. So I find it very interesting that they just call it out like this. It's really just about going back to your favorite kind of virtual space and playing in it a little longer. Because they do have to dust it off and rebrand it. This is the marketing they used 2 years ago to re-release Dust in its newest iteration. Historique Dust 2. It's like a tourist destination. It's like, you're gentrified. We have better looking terrorists. We have better looking walls. These corners are still the same, but they have better textures and they're higher resolution. This is the quote that I think is the most interesting. This is what they said in their press release. What the hell the essence of CS is, or pure form, is probably just gameplay jargon. But it really is also a mystery, I think, of what the pure form of Dust 2 is. I have no damn idea, so I'm not going to try and guess today. I just want to get to the point that these maps and virtual spaces are very much ingrained in us now after 2 decades of play, and that they in themselves can attract people to them over the course of so many years, which is why I think the original title of my talk was Aging with Counter-Strike. So to go back to Dust, I mean, the interesting part is that it's not just the essence of CS. I think Dust goes past CS. You see it brought into different games, right? Like what it's virtual. Why not bring it into GTA? Or why not bring Dust into Minecraft? And I guess I want to make a quick claim that Dust and like a lot of old virtual spaces are kind of like the lingua franca of games that we want to see Dust 2 replicated in our future games, to understand them or to feel like it's like a template that we can place in the world to feel them out, because we kind of know like a meter stick, we know the corners of Dust 2 so well that we can kind of throw it onto any sort of game to understand that game in advance almost by replicating Dust 2 across 1 million different worlds. And even our own, if we so choose. But it's a little boring when it comes into the real world, to be honest. So it's a very personal, I think, experience for a lot of people. In the original map, there are behind the walls to this day. You can no-clip through the walls and find tributes to old friends and past map makers who've left us. And it's a very personal experience. But now we have, obviously, a very sanitized version of Dust. And I'm going to play a quick video of kind of how Dust 2 is probably most seen or visited or viewed today.
Device did have his moments as well, as we mentioned, but at least for me, really is doing a fantastic job. Right up there at the top with 16 kills and 10 deaths. Nitro probably needs to pull his socks up. They got a chance of taking this to a 5th with 2 and 9. But still, Dust 2 always delivers in the hype, and we're having some great moments here.
So that's Dust 2. Always delivers on the hype, as they say. So here's where we're at. Now we're at the present. Dust 2 is a sports coliseum, and it's a very popular one. And so I want to suggest now that we're kind of in the second stage of virtual space as coliseums, as places that we inhabit, as a workplace, as something where work is done. And it's become that. So instead of playing in these spaces, now we're in them to become athletes or streamers or YouTubers. Games now function as sort of a space for to spawn 1 million video essayists on YouTube to make their channel or have their opinions heard. That virtual space acts now more as this kind of intense, laborious environment for a lot of people, and less about entertainment for half of them. You could be playing in your favorite Fortnite server and someone kills you, and they're live streaming it. So you don't just get killed in the server, you also get killed on Twitch, and you get killed all across those streaming platforms for everyone to see. And you encounter that on a daily basis because most of the young people want to be streaming and sharing their experiences. So it's not very insular anymore. You kind of have these large structures built into games now. And then a small detour onto the other ways. I think virtual space has kind of been inhabited through loot boxes. These are things that we don't want to hear about anymore because they're kind of old and boring, and we know about them. We just want to move past them at this point. But there is a huge problem with gambling in Counter-Strike where young people were gambling away their money, opening loot crates, trading items. I mean, it's very telling that Yanis Varoufakis, who was, during the Euro crisis of 2009, was managing the Greek economy, was then brought on as a consultant to help Valve manage their in-game TF2 economy. I mean, what's more telling that there are some serious market forces and developments within virtual space than Yanis hopping on to help balance some hats in TF2. And I think, obviously, a footnote needs to be placed again for Fortnite, who's been the most ruthless, I think, in this regard in the past few years, in their monetization of culture and creating new culture in the exchange of that culture. It's a truly transgressive video game in the sense that you had celebrities and other people playing it, but at kind of the cost of obviously some ethical and moral kind of transgressions into dance and other things and monetizing that culture. And I think on a final note, because I'm trying to go quickly, is this one that Robert Yang kind of noted. He'd written an article in 2017 covering the ethics of map modders creating their schools or malls in Counter-Strike as a place to do battle, because why would you want to replicate a real place in virtual space to kill people in? But it didn't. It's funny because it didn't even matter in the end, because now we're just creating virtual real spaces like virtual spaces, where there was a campus in the U.S., a high school campus that was built using line of sight and other kind of like FPS type elements to help protect students in the case of an active shooter. So this is the reverse that we've seen, how virtual space has maybe bled a little into the real space, where where do we bear the responsibility for this? Gun regulation would be nice. So to now take a detour, I'll slow down again. I just want to talk about a couple art projects, I guess, that kind of captured, I think, these ideas that I've been sharing today of virtual realism, of the death of virtual space. One of them is Aaron Bartal's Winter Prison, where he printed out parts of Dust 2. In fact, he actually had a project where he wanted to make a real-life scale version of Dust 2, and he proposed it, but I don't think it was ever funded. So instead, he printed out a few of the boxes and the crates and shuffled them around this gallery. And it's a very striking image, though. It looks fake and photoshopped. I was going to show a video, but it's fine. It's very striking to see these virtual objects invade our real world and to be manufactured. Be a nice coffee table. The second project is The Continuous City by Gareth Damian Martin. It's an ongoing project in which he plays video games and then using a 35mm camera, takes photos of his TV screen and captures the cities inside our cities. So the cities inside our screens that are the continuous cities that are built in virtual space. They're quite striking images, and I think it really says a lot about how we don't even really think of these spaces as space at all, or how extensive and large they are, but how little, I think, time we pay attention to an image this captivating. So yeah, I think to wrap up slowly, maybe make some predictions for the future. I've been barraging you with a lot of maybe pseudo theory, but this is my thought, which is, what's the future of virtual space? And I think it becomes quite flat. I think we don't go deeper than this. We kind of get pushed back out into the plane of the image. And there's a couple of reasons for this. This technology is probably going to change our lives quite substantially in the next few years. So is this technology, is blockchain. Your first virtual kind of, you can see the deeds in the top right. That's the layout of this virtual space called Decentraland that you can buy and purchase land. So you see these developments it's a 5G, goes back to this though. You see instead of owning the virtual worlds on your computer, they are streamed to your television through PlayStation Now, Stadia, or Apple Arcade, or Project xCloud. So these virtual spaces no longer even live on your machine, they're just brought to you on demand. So obviously map modding and everything like that maybe goes out the window too, except for the few passionate left over. So what we get is streamers, we get video games are kind of become an economy of images and visuals and video for people to become personalities, entertainers, athletes, and we use games then as that kind of avenue and those images as the virtual economy, but they live more as those images than they do as the virtual worlds and us entering them and kind of occupying them. They are instead fed back to us, I think, over the screen and over the tube. So that's all I have for now. Thanks for listening to my talk on the death of virtual space, and I hope it was interesting.